There are moments in life when the lines blur, when boundaries you never thought you'd cross suddenly seem too easy to step over. My name is Jessica, and I'm a 31-year-old woman living in a suburban neighborhood in the outskirts of Denver. My life has always been quiet, predictable even, and I liked it that way. I've been married to my husband Ryan for 7 years, and we have 2 kids together, a 5-year-old son Jack and a 3-year-old daughter Emma. Our life was busy but stable, filled with play dates, school pickups, and family dinners. I was close friends with my neighbor, Rebecca, who lived just down the street with her husband Matt and their 2 kids. Rebecca and I had become inseparable over the years. We shared everything, from parenting tips to the occasional glass of wine after a long day. Our kids played together and our families often spent weekends together, barbecuing in the backyard or taking trips to the park. It was the kind of friendship that felt effortless, built on trust and familiarity. But somewhere along the way, things changed. It wasn't something that happened overnight, but little by little, the dynamics of our friendship shifted, and I found myself caught in a situation I never imagined I'd be in. It started one weekend when Ryan was away on a business trip. He traveled a lot for work, and though I was used to being on my own with the kids, it could still be overwhelming at times. Rebecca had gone out of town with her children to visit her parents, leaving Matt behind to catch up on some work. It was a rare weekend where I had the house to myself, and I planned to use the time to catch up on some home repairs I had been putting off. The weather that Saturday morning was perfect, warm and sunny, the kind of day that makes you want to be outside. I was working on fixing a broken section of the fence in our backyard when I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, Jess, need some help?" I turned to see Matt standing there, his hands in his pockets, a friendly smile on his face. He was wearing a casual t-shirt and jeans, looking every bit like the guy who had helped me and Ryan with countless projects around the house over the years. "Hey, Matt," I greeted him, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "I think I've got it under control, but I wouldn't say no to some extra hands." He chuckled and stepped closer, grabbing the hammer from my hand. "Let me take a look. Ryan isn't here, so you're stuck with me." I smiled, grateful for the help. We worked side by side, chatting about everything and nothing. The conversation was easy, comfortable, just like it had always been. Matt and I had never been more than friendly neighbors, and I never thought anything of it. He was Rebecca's husband, and Rebecca was my closest friend. That was all there was to it. But as we worked, I couldn't help but notice little things, like the way Matt's arm brushed against mine when he handed me a nail, or how he looked at me just a little longer than necessary when we shared a laugh. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Once the fence was repaired, we sat down on the porch to take a break, enjoying the sun and the quiet of the neighborhood. "You've got a knack for this stuff," Matt said, taking a sip of water. "Ryan's a lucky guy." I laughed, shrugging it off. "It's just a fence, nothing special." "No, I mean it," he said, his tone more serious now. "You're amazing, Jess. You keep this whole place running, take care of the kids, manage everything on your own when Ryan's away. It's impressive." I felt my cheeks warm at the compliment. "Thanks, Matt. I don't know about amazing, but I do my best." He smiled, his gaze lingering on mine a little too long. "You don't give yourself enough credit." There was a moment of silence, and I suddenly felt a tension in the air that hadn't been there before. I tried to brush it off, but it lingered, like a shadow that wouldn't go away. "I should probably get back to work inside," I said, standing up and brushing the dust off my jeans. Matt stood up too, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, of course. Let me know if you need anything else." I nodded, grateful for the out. "Thanks again for your help." He gave me a small smile before heading back down the street to his house, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I walked back inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. I told myself I was imagining things, that Matt was just being friendly. But deep down, I knew there was more to it. The next few days were uneventful, and I tried to push the interaction with Matt out of my mind. But as the week went on, I found myself thinking about it more and more. I started to notice the way Matt looked at me when we crossed paths, the way he smiled at me, his eyes lingering just a little too long. I didn't want to believe it, But there was no denying the tension that had started to build between us. It was subtle, but it was there, simmering beneath the surface. Then, one evening, everything changed. Ryan was still away on his trip, and I had just put the kids to bed when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was surprised to find Matt standing there, looking a little nervous. "Hey, Jess," he said, his voice low. "Can I come in?" I hesitated for a moment, my heart racing. Sure, what's up?" He stepped inside and I closed the door behind him, feeling a knot form in my stomach. There was something different about him tonight, an intensity in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. "I've been thinking a lot about the other day," he began, his voice quiet, "and I need to talk to you about something." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Okay, what is it?" Matt looked down at the floor, his hands shoved in his pockets. "I don't know how to say this, Jess, but I've been having feelings for you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Matt, I know it's wrong," he interrupted, looking up at me, his eyes filled with emotion. "I know you're married, and I'm married to Rebecca, but I can't help it. I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't anymore." I stared at him, speechless. This was Rebecca's husband, my friend's husband. How had we ended up here? "Matt, we can't," I said finally, my voice shaky. This is wrong." "I know," he whispered, stepping closer to me, "but I can't stop thinking about you, Jess. You're all I think about." I took a step back, my mind racing. "You need to leave. We can't do this, Matt. We can't." He looked at me, hurt flashing in his eyes, but he nodded. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have come. I needed you to know." And with that, he turned and walked out the door, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't sleep at all that night. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and guilt. How had things gotten so complicated? Matt was Rebecca's husband, and I was married to Ryan. This wasn't supposed to happen. I told myself that I needed to distance myself from Matt, to put an end to whatever this was before it went any further. But even as I made that decision, I couldn't shake the feeling of excitement that had crept into my chest during our conversation. The attention, the validation, it was intoxicating. The next morning, I saw Matt outside as I was getting the kids ready for school. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I felt that familiar tension settle between us. He didn't say anything, and neither did I, but the unspoken understanding hung in the air. A few days later, I was sitting in the backyard watching Jack and Emma play when my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Matt. "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at the message, my heart racing. I knew I should ignore it, that I should cut off contact with him completely. But a part of me didn't want to. A part of me craved the attention, the connection that had developed between us. Sure, I typed back before I could stop myself. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Matt came over. We sat on the porch, the air between us thick with tension. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then, finally, Matt broke the silence. "I can't stop thinking about you, Jess," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know it's wrong, but I can't help it." I looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest. "Matt, we can't do this. We both have families. We can't ruin everything." "I know," he said, his voice filled with pain. "But it's not just about the physical stuff. I feel something for you, Jess, something real." I stared at him, my mind racing. I knew what he was saying was wrong, that we were treading on dangerous ground. But I couldn't deny that I felt something too, a pull, an attraction that I hadn't felt in years. Before I could stop myself, I reached out and touched his hand. It was a small gesture, but it was enough to send a jolt of electricity through me. "Matt," I began, but I couldn't find the words to finish. He leaned in, his lips brushing against mine, and for a moment, I let myself get lost in the kiss. It was soft at first, hesitant, but it quickly deepened, fueled by all the emotions we had been holding back. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless, my heart racing. "We can't," I whispered, my voice filled with regret. "This isn't fair to anyone." "I know," Matt said, his forehead resting against mine, "but I don't want to stop." The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen glances, secret messages, and late-night conversations. Matt and I tried to keep things as platonic as possible, but the tension between us never fully dissipated. It was only a matter of time before things came to a head. One afternoon, I received a text from Rebecca. She wanted to know if everything was okay. She had noticed Matt was acting distant, and she was worried. Guilt washed over me, and I knew I had to put an end to things with Matt. We were playing with fire, and it wasn't fair to Rebecca or Ryan. That evening, I told Matt we couldn't see each other anymore. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "I can't do this to Rebecca. I can't do this to my family." Matt nodded, his expression pained. "I understand." As the weeks turned into months, things slowly began to return to normal. I focused on my marriage, trying to repair the cracks that had formed, and Matt and I kept our distance. Rebecca never found out what had happened, and for that, I was grateful. Looking back, I realized that I had come dangerously close to losing everything. The excitement, the thrill, it had all been fleeting. In the end, the most important thing was my family. And I had almost let it slip through my fingers. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones you learn the hard way.